Good evening, welcome to my channel. My name is David Okun. I'm speaking about the cost of living in the UK with reference to policy on the cost of living crisis, which is geared to tackle the problem of income and also look at other factors, including maximizing income, dealing with debts, dealing with income issues. I have said it elsewhere, and I'm saying again that the cost of living, the primary reason is the cost of living crisis in the UK because of poverty among the majority of the population. This is caused by an extreme form of capitalism, which actually fail to pay attention to the public sector instrumentation of the economy, where people of this country are actually paid low, and also the level of benefit is quite low. Income as a result, or for people who work for a living, have to do with employment, self-employment, especially self-employment among the small and medium businesses. These are actually category of workers, as employed or self-employed, who actually are poor, who actually suffer low income factors on the one, and on the other hand, people who do not work for one reason or another, who depend on benefit in the UK. Benefit is money given to support people who are out of work, children, pensioners, and people who have lost their jobs, or people on low income generally, and also people who are sick. These are some of the dimensions where government, under the public sector and public policy, provide a welfare benefit in the UK. It's a policy similar in Europe, America, and in parts also Asia, but less so in Africa, giving all the continent similar, but not Africa, which actually don't experience the benefit situation with the state. Now, also, when the majority of the population actually are excluded from opportunities to get them out of poverty in the first place, including the middle class, and in the second also, we have a globe, including the United Kingdom, where we have lost track of our priority, which actually we fail to understand the culture of our worlds, failing to value humanity as a priority, valuing money and wealth and power and all the other factors more than humanity. That's why we neglect the economy in terms of the public service, which is being closed down by an extreme operation of capitalism, a feat actually produced by bad ideology and poor politics. So that's what I've been saying, but this time I'd like to narrow down to the kind of help given in the United Kingdom. These help are available, but they are difficult to get, and the information is that if you are actually struggling, try your best to get this help. There is a food bank, fuel bank. There is also benefit, but there is also help from energy company to deal with energy bills, which are actually, if you're in debt with these energy companies are actually a multi-million and multi-billion corporation. There are actually help given through the government, given from the government through the energy company. But the problem in practice is that these energy companies are reluctant to give this money out, because this money are discretionary, which means it is not mandatory. The government this is due to the government policy allowing these energy companies to decide on their own merit. And in my opinion, I think the government should change policy. If it's going to give help through many companies, should make it mandatory that people who have need should be provided help. And also, the government should also define statutorily what need is, and it should be expanded and made easy within our programs. So the question of the cost of living goes beyond the cost of living. It actually encompasses human societies, whether you're living in Britain, whether you're living across the other parts of the world. And if you watch the rest of my video, you will discover that I have discussed the cost of living crisis in terms of peace or lack of peace. And thank you everyone again for supporting this channel and for actually undertaking to share, to undertaking to subscribe, to watch the videos, and also to benefit if you can, or allow other people to benefit from the videos and from this program, because the most important indication coming from the cost of living crisis is how our society behave, our government behave. And if we are going to look at the cost of living as an incident among other incidents of society, as a crisis happening in Britain, as a crisis happening across the globe, we will find that a crisis are actually always a symptom. Like I said at the start of this program, especially this video, but also throughout this program, talking about the cost of living. And my invitation to viewers, and for those who may or may not have the opportunity to view this material, is that to look at the cost of living just because it is a problem without looking at the wider issues of society is a good idea, but it is actually a better idea to go to try and take a wider view of what causes the cost of living. And like I said before, and I keep saying it again, I invite viewers to pay attention. If there is a problem happening in society, then it is our responsibility to make sure these problems are solved. And to solve these problems, we are supposed to identify the problems. And if we negate on our duties as citizens of the world, in particular in Britain, which I'm actually discussing Britain now, if we as the British people renegate on our negate on our responsibilities, then we will be responsible for the problems, including the problem of the cost of living crisis. Like I said, if you want to listen to this, listen carefully, that the cost of living is a symptom of our society, the condition of our living, which is an opportunity for us to begin the process of healing, begin the process of taking responsibility for our life, begin the process of learning peace. And the most important element of peace, apart from the government actually correcting the inequalities in terms of the economy, in terms of income, in terms of the product of development. Like I have said before, and I repeat it here, the failure of the government to actually get the people of the world in Britain, the British people, being stuck in poverty. And in a country where Britain is the 6th richest country in the world, and among the richest countries, poverty should not be heard. The British government should be entirely ashamed of itself. The British people are supposed to be ashamed of themselves. Our shame should lead us into thinking constructively and taking duties, taking responsibility to speak to the government. If you're a British person, if you're actually listening to this video wherever you are in the world, speak to your government. And if you are not allowed to speak to your government in a country where there is you are prevented in one way or the other, you cannot speak, then do something else. You can speak directly or indirectly. Families, individuals can come together and discuss, take responsibility, think, use your head, think, and also learn, read, go to the library, read about poverty, what is causing poverty, read about the economy, read about income, read about debt, read about income maximization. Look for information. Take responsibility for your life. Regardless where you are, do that. Do as little or as much as you can. What you have learned to gain knowledge, use that knowledge to bring change. This is why I am actually taking this opportunity created by the cost of living crisis to participate as a member of our community to solve the problem of the cost of living crisis. So I often hear people talk about the environment, and they are right, especially young people worried about the environment, the calamity facing humanity. And so we should be, because we value our life, and that is the right thing to do. It is instinctive that every individual, including wild animals, including trees, every source of life actually value its life, the life of its kind. And humanity are also inclined to value itself, to value the life of other humanity as a priority. When that fails, then there is something wrong in our community. So as individuals living in Britain, as individuals living in other countries, it is our duty to look after humanity as a species. And the cost of living is evidence of failure of culture, but also of development. In terms of development, we have failed to take our people in Britain and our people across the globe out of poverty. There is enough wealth, there is technology, knowledge, and strong economies across the globe. There is wealth. And why in the world should anybody in the world, including in Britain, or actually in another continent, in Europe, or in another continent, or America, or Africa, or elsewhere, why in the world should somebody be in poverty? One person living in the world, living in poverty, is one person too many. And if we, because of our failure of society, if we allow even one individual living in poverty, then we are actually declaring that we don't care. We don't care about our own species. One person suffering unnecessarily is one person too many. And this is the primary cause of the cost of living crisis, which is actually the cost of living is actually a symptom. And I have been saying this, and I will continue to say it again. And I believe and I hope somebody watching this video will stop and think, and also learn to understand what is happening in Britain, and to understand what is happening around the world. Our destiny lies within Britain as the British people, but also as people living in other countries. Our destiny lies in the health and safety, in the security of our respective countries, in our respective continents. And therefore, whether you are British or the citizen of another country, you have a responsibility as an individual. You have a duty of care to yourself, to your family, to your community, and to your country. And the cost of living crisis is a disgrace to humanity as a species. If you are a human being living in Britain, if you live in Africa or in the rest of the continent of Europe, Asia, or elsewhere, you as a human being should be ashamed of yourself. You do not need to take responsibility for the problem of the cost of living, but as an individual, you should be ashamed of yourself, because as a humanity, we have failed. If we still allow the kind of things, including the cost of living crisis. And I've been saying this again, and my hope is for people to understand. And in this video, I have actually mentioned talking about Britain a policy. But if we concentrate on policies, then we are doing the right thing. But also, if we are looking at the wider picture, where the cost of living has been a menace in Britain and also a menace across the globe, if we do that, we're doing the right thing. Either way, we are to identify the problem of policy, of capitalism, extreme form of capitalism which is happening in Britain, and also happening in the rest of the world. And this must stop as policy, but also in practice. The culture is broken. There is disrespect for humanity. And people in power should stop and think correctly. Otherwise, they should think again. And if you're in power, if you are responsible for policy, and speak to your fellow party member. If you're a conservative party, think again the way you practice capitalism. If you are actually in Britain, the British government, consider how you practice capitalism in Britain and also in other in the continent of Europe, and I understand that policy objectives in terms of the economy and other elements is now globalized. Therefore, Britain need to partner with friends, or even if they are not your friends, we have a common enemy known as poverty. And even if somebody is your enemy, you need to stop and talk common interest, such as poverty, such as the cost of living crisis in Europe, in America, in Africa, in the rest of the world, in Asia. And it's an opportunity for the world to come together to solve the problem of poverty, which is causing the cost of living as a matter of fundamental. But on the other end, we need to improve on our education to value humanity in what I term as the cultural economy. Let us now turn, and if you haven't subscribed to this channel, subscribe to this channel and think about your life. You are responsible for your life. You are responsible for the cost of living crisis, whether the government takes responsibility or not. As citizens of Britain, you are responsible. The question is, if you are actually a multimillionaire or a multi-billionaire, don't sit there and do nothing. Think and take responsibility to get rid of the cost of living crisis by helping the government or helping community organizations directly with money to get the British people out of poverty, and also start negotiating with the British government to negotiate with the rest of the world to get people out of poverty. That is the solution of the problem of the cost of living crisis. And I've been saying this, I will continue to say it again because it is the most important thing. Is continue to look for problem for ways to solve the problem in the UK. And such as, like I said in the opening, and if you watch the rest of the video, and also if you subscribe to this channel to support it, then you will discover that I've actually mentioned this over and over. And it is important that people pay attention because it is your life. You take responsibility for your life. Therefore, let us look at some of the factors which are actually associated with the cost of living crisis and also the policy of the United Kingdom. There are not just one policy, but there are so many policies. That's what I will be going through in this process. Looking at, if you live in the United Kingdom, you will realize that you are supposed to pay for your energy bill. That is one of the things you do. And if you don't, you're going to be disconnected. I have said this in the other videos. I will repeat it just to carry on. And then you also have grants and benefits which would help to pay your energy bills. These come from the government, but these governments are actually paying this help through private companies. Private companies make it almost impossible in practice, but do your best to ask for it. And if necessary, go and speak to your member of parliament and tell them you are actually in debt with energy costs, and you are struggling even if you are not in debt. Because now the way the energy company is behaving is that if you're in debt, then you will consider. But the condition they put is you have to get debt advice, which is okay. But getting debt advice in the United Kingdom is not easy because these are mostly private companies who lack funding, small and medium businesses or small projects within the third sector which lack funding. Also, the local authorities lacking funding. So to require for the multi-million and multi-billion organization to require the British people to get advice before they get help is wrong, because getting this help should be given by the energy company. They shouldn't be sending people to other organizations when these other organizations do not actually have funding. Even if they have, then they probably don't take responsibility to give advice to people who need that advice. This is the practical issue. The government needs to understand that if you're going to give help to people who need help, you don't complicate the process of getting help. The idea that you are actually poor and living in a crisis, still the government is behaving to you to take responsibility, which cannot be taken, because you see, wherever you go now in the local authority, there is a problem of funding. Services are shutting down. So for the energy company to send the British people to debt advisors in order to get help, which are grants and benefits from energy company, is wrong. The way the British government should do in terms of policy and practice, you're going to give help to British people, give help through the public sector, not private sector. And with the whether it is public or private, you have to really direct them, and this help should be mandatory. Otherwise, you need to increase the level of benefit through the Department of Works and Pension, and cut out the rubbish about giving money to private company or to other charities unnecessarily. If you need to help people, you change the way of income. Like I said, these people fail to pay their bills because of low income when they are working, of low income when they are not working. I have seen this, I repeat this over and over. And that is what the government needs to do. Give money to the government department to give directly to people who need it mandatorily. Now, the government are actually mandatory means they are supposed to help. As of right. When you give money to the council, which is the local authority, or you give it to other charities, or you give it to energy company, and this help is actually discretionary, which means these organizations have to decide. You subject help to unnecessary system of bureaucracy within the third sector, within the voluntary sector, within the statutory sector, and within the business sector. This is wrong, and this is unnecessary. This is an excuse, in my opinion, by the government, which has failed to provide public sector to manage public service, to provide to manage the public sector to provide public service. And it is an excuse. It is willful to shut down the public sector, and it's a willful, is a ploy to refuse to help the people of Britain who are actually suffering. Now, we are probably 30% of people who are extremely poor, who are on low pay, within the minimum wage, and also people who are actually on benefits. And these are actually now the people who are suffering about 30%, but it's going to get worse to capture also the middle class, who will be losing their jobs, not least to technology, but also they will losing their job because small and medium businesses will be shutting down, and if ultimately by nature the big businesses will be shutting down because they will not be able to make money. And big organizations, actually mostly businesses, are owned by multi-billionaires and multi-billionaires. As they do, they fail often to, they always fail to run the economy. The reason, the primary reason for private companies to run the economy is actually to make money. They are not there to help people. They are not there to create jobs. Job is a form of cost to private companies. They don't like paying salary because it costs them. When a private company talk of efficiency, it is saying the organization is making profit. It is also saying the company is actually cutting costs. Cutting costs, the first thing to cut is actually employment. Therefore, as you lose jobs in among the middle class, the number of people facing immediate poverty actually increases. This is something we need to pay attention to, and I'm saying this so that people who are now doing well as middle classes are actually not aware that they are actually facing calamity either immediately or in the short, medium, or long term. We need to be aware. We need to do a study. We take responsibility and watch this video. Leave a comment below and let me know if you think it is useful, if you think it is not useful. And whatever happens, look after yourself, look after your money, and whatever help is available. It doesn't matter how hard it is. Do your best. If you fail, take a note of it. If you can talk to your member of parliament, if you can then do so. If you can speak to your family, do so. If you can speak to friends, do so. Do everything possible to look up to it. If you are able to work, the best way actually to now get help is actually work. You may have to work 3 or 4 jobs, which some people are already doing. There are a lot of people who do not even rest anymore, and they think it is temporary. That is actually only the beginning, because you're lucky there is work. It doesn't matter how little it pays. There are people who are now working like slaves, and from employers who are ruthless, employers who are actually uncaring, who are culturally bankrupt. So the problem is complex. I've been talking about this, and I'll continue to talk about it. As we are looking at these elements, we're looking about energy. Energy is a major issue now, because you see the government, which is actually violent, always deprive people of energy and food, because you see the system is actually focusing on rule, and it is a form of violence. And to rule over people, you need to really control energy and food, and that's why the first effect of violence from the state is to get rid of food and energy. And if you are getting into trouble, it's by design other than by accident. And this needs to change. Government should actually learn its culture. We as people also should learn our culture. We should have to value our life, value the life of other people. And it is not an accident that we will be also facing bills from water, and as we are. But the water, like I said yesterday, it's a non-priority debt. It's non-priority debt because it is not going to be disconnected if you are in debt with water. But you may be taken to court, in which case, specifically, if you have water bills, you can negotiate with the water company. And water company are also given money by the government to give to you as a grant, to support you if you are struggling. But the same thing is happening with water as much as it is happening with the energy company. They don't give this money. Conditions they give, including you have to get that advice. And that advice is so difficult to get because there are no organizations now. The organizations are there, they get funding, but it's not enough. If the government were giving funding to these debt advisors, lawyers, and these legal advisors on debt, if the government was funding them, the service would be available. But these services are now not available because you see, if you fund this organization, they are polite. They keep referring clients from one organization to another. So these clients don't get help. They're shared from one organization to another. They go in circles because you see, the provider of services are frustrated. The government is not giving them enough resources, especially to employ workers for these services. And it only boils down to one thing. It doesn't matter what people may think. It's money missing from the government, and it is deliberate. It is ideologically driven. It's politically manufactured at Westminster by political parties like the Conservative Party, but also New Labour, the Liberal Democrats, and all these right-wing leaning politicians. They are ignorant about the value of humanity. They only think about money and wealth and power, and that is okay, but it is not a priority. It is a priority, alternatively, to think about people first. And this may sound simple or simplistic, but it is why the fundamental reason why there's a cost of living crisis. So you have things like universal credit, which is a form of benefit. It's a product of reform, which is actually a nonsense because there is no reform there. So the only reform is that universal credit is harder to get. The government, by creating universal credit, has made it almost impossible to get help in terms of benefits. And people are now suffering more because of the universal credit. And if it's a sensible government coming into power, the first thing to scrap is universal credit. Whether we keep universal credit or scrap it, whatever benefit is available, the level has to increase. If you don't increase the level of benefit, then people will remain in poverty. There is no logic surrounding policy and also the service of benefit. If it keeps people permanently in poverty, it's a form of evil, either deliberately or recklessly. Government has to choose, but it is so wrong that you have a government in a very wealthy country like Britain, keeping people willfully or by carelessness in poverty by applying the rules and conditions of benefit, and also in terms of employment. Those are the two sources of income for people who are actually on low income, and the workers, the lower in the middle class. Lower and middle class are measured in terms of income, and you are lower because you're paid lowest, and you're middle because you're paid low. Apart from that, anybody else is actually a millionaire or a multimillionaire or a billionaire, and they don't suffer the cost of living crisis. So let us look at what is happening, and let us look at the behavior of policy. Actually, in terms of social policy, policy applies differently in England and Wales. It applies different in Wales and Scotland and Northern Ireland, similar to one another in England and Wales. Policies relating to society, but also in Northern Ireland they are distinctively different. Also in Scotland. So take account of that. If you're in England and Wales, then you can go onto the government website and onto your local council. You will find information on help available. But be warned and also be resilient. Do your best to get help, but this help are getting less and less from the government. So it is necessary now for you to start looking after yourself, and also maybe talking to your MP to persuade the government to actually pay attention to poverty. And now, if you're in debt, you are with energy, for example, you need to agree a payment plan with your supplier. That is an example of information you need to know. And normally people actually neglect their bills, but if it's the priority debt, like energy or any other form of debt, you need to actually talk to your supplier and deal with it, or get advice from professionals like Citizen Advice or other charities or other organizations, or from friends, family and friends, if you know any, so that apparently you can get help, get whatever help you can. And normally, if you don't come to an agreement, then there is a possibility that you're going to get into trouble, because if you can get a grant, which is very difficult to get. You see, the thing with grants, according to policy, it is potentially you can pay off the entire debt, which is quite nice that they are discretionary, which means energy company decide, independent of the government, of the law, they decide to give or not to give. And the condition now they are giving is such as to prevent the help reaching those who need help. And for example, unnecessarily, energy companies are now requiring that you need to be in debt in order to get help. I think that is outside logic. If you are actually struggling to pay a bill, you should actually apply for this help. And if they were mandatory, and which is a requirement, then if you are actually on low income, automatically you should get that help, even if you are in debt, even if you are not in debt. The fact that you are actually disciplined and you pay your bill, you should suffer. And people who don't pay their bill, in theory, are the man who would qualify, is nonsense. The government should change this policy. Like I said, if there is help, if there is any grant, it should be given through the local authorities and also through the DWP as part of benefit. And the government should not wait until people are running out of electricity or gas until they struggle to pay their bills. Then the government should then some private company, multi-billion companies who are so greedy, who are so ridiculous, they keep this money. They don't actually give any money to anybody. And this is actually a fact. The government should review this information, and any help as given in grants should be mandatory in the sense that they should be given as a right. And it should be given before there's a crisis. It should be given because people who are actually on benefit should get it immediately. People who are on low income, on minimum wage, even if they work full time, they should get it as a benefit. So the rule on benefit also now is if you're on, if you probably get £1,500, you don't get benefit. That should change. If you are getting £2,000, you should still get benefit. Although housing benefit may be given separately, but universal credit now encompasses housing and living allowance, and also child tax credit. Working tax credit has been replaced by universal credit, which is actually wrong in the sense that there should be one benefit, either income support or name it whatever you like, but you need to really give one benefit which should pay for housing, and should be, even if you pay for housing and the rest of the bills, you should still have some savings. The aim of benefit should be applied to get people out of poverty altogether. It is not supposed to get people rich. That is not what I'm talking about. People who have been on benefit have been kept poor permanently because the level of help is symbolic, is really terrible. The government should actually pay a minimum of £30 an hour in benefit, and in a year, if you are not working, you should get around £30,000 in benefit. They should look for the money. They should go to rich people and get the money. If not, they should create money and also talk to their British, European allies to do the same. Also in Asia and across the globe, benefit should get people, including in Britain, out of poverty. If people are actually working, the minimum wage now is keeping people in poverty also. That should change. Minimum wage should also be, if you work for maybe 40 hours a week, you should be able to earn after tax something like between 20 to 30,000 after tax. And that should be the policy. The government should give grants to small and medium business to support minimum wage, or whatever you call it, living wage. It should go up. And this should be funded by the government through private companies. And there should be a mandatory requirement for employers to implement the minimum wage, which should be about 30 to 40 pounds an hour. And that should also be reflected in benefit. And benefit will be funded directly through the Department of Work and Pension, or any other department the government will be interested to use. But if it is provided via local authorities or private company or charities, then it should be, all benefits should be mandatory, including child benefit. There is no logic in the government actually paying child benefit about £21 per week. I think child benefit should be about maybe £80 per week, similar to the amount you pay to adults. But the amount you pay to adults should increase. It should be paying one benefit. See, the thing is, if your child is already being paid universal credit, which actually should cover everything, should cover living allowance and sickness, it should cover your rent. These are the three factors. If the government wants to help sick people, that is their problem. No sick person said they wanted benefit. Because the government doesn't actually have proper brain to think. they give sickness benefit. You don't need sickness benefit. If there is a problem, then finance the NHS to actually support sick people in a specific way, because we don't plan our life that we are going to be sick. The government should pay enough benefit. If you are sick or if you are not sick, you should still use your money the way you want. Stop wasting money on sickness benefit. Pay enough benefit, just one benefit. If you want to pay children separately, you pay children separately, because some people are single. And the same applies to pension. The pension should be increased. And if a person, actually an individual worker, is employed even only for a day, they should get the full state pension. There should be only one pension, and it should cover living allowance and rent. There is no reason why a pensioner should be paid housing benefit. If you want housing benefit, why should you pay housing benefit separately? Estimate you need to assess housing alongside the rest of benefit. If somebody is living in a house where you pay one benefit, or maybe income support like it used to be, you estimate, you have to shake the standard living allowance and increase it enough to get people out of poverty. But when it comes to assessing housing as part of benefit, if you're living in a single bedroom, then you're given a certain amount of money. And if it is affordable, it's the responsibility of the government to actually build houses for people who are homeless. If it cannot, then people who are homeless should be renting privately, and the government should pay the full rent. Right now, the government is not paying the full rent. It's a benefit cap policy. That should be scrapped, because the government is avoiding building public housing, and if it has built public housing, it's so difficult, impossible to get public housing now. If the government doesn't want to give public housing, then it should pay rent to people who work for a living. As long as their salary cannot pay rent, these people should get benefit. It doesn't matter how much they get. They get in salary. They should get money specifically to pay rent, because it doesn't matter how, because people cannot be homeless if they're not millionaires or billionaires. Being millionaires or billionaires means they can buy their homes without borrowing money. They're rich. Now, if they're not rich, the government should actually give them benefit to pay rent. Alternatively, the government should build houses for people who are working for living, especially the ones who get less than £50,000 per month should be automatically eligible to get benefit from the government to pay rent. If the government doesn't build public housing should be provided free of charge, and the government should also change laws on succession. If you have a house and you are the person you live with, your wife or your husband, you live with them. If you die, you leave your property to them, and if they die, they leave their property to whoever they choose, their family or close family who have been looking after them. The problem with housing now, government housing, if the husband dies, for example, the husband dies, the husband is allowed to leave a property to his wife. Now, if his wife dies, now there is no third succession. The children will no longer succeed to the property. They will be homeless, and the home will be returned to the government. That policy should change. Succession policy should be such that parents will leave property to their children if they want to live. If you want to live in the council property, if you want to move somewhere else, they should negotiate with the council to move them somewhere else. And if the government thinks whatever house tenants live in is too big, then the government should actually maybe give a smaller property to people who are living in a very big home. Now, what is happening now? The government is actually taxing people who are living in bigger houses, and yet the government is not actually providing property. If somebody chooses to reduce their rooms, the government doesn't have housing for these people. The government instead asks these people to rent privately. So it is an excuse of the government to refuse to give housing to people. This is all relating to the cost of living crisis. You see, the trick of the government is just about one thing: it's refusing to provide a public service, and refusing to give public service because he has closed down the public sector. He doesn't want to fund the public sector. That's why he's closing it down, including housing, including hospitals, including schools, including public transport, including housing, including income like employment, including benefit. People need to understand this, and that's why I've been talking about this. And if we want to listen, let us listen. If we don't, then I will continue to speak. And thank you for watching my video and supporting my channel. And subscribe to my channel. And leave a comment below if you value this. If you don't value it, support the channel anyway. And this is educational, and this is also providing information. And I call on looking at the different elements, because there is a lot of information and there are a lot of complications relating to the cost of living crisis. I'm just taking you through and to explain in terms of income, in terms of employment, in terms of education, health care. In the hospital, I've already mentioned the problem with waiting list, with waiting time in the hospital, waiting list in terms of housing. It's a shame. And you can phone your GP, your general practitioner. You wait for 2 hours, and you wait and wait and wait. And when somebody answers the phone, they don't do anything to help. And the doctors, if you are lucky enough to get the doctor, they don't do anything. Normally, they don't really even check you very much because of resources. But in practice, it's almost impossible now to get an appointment with the GP. It's impossible to get an ambulance. If you get it, then to get help from the hospital acting in emergency is almost impossible. Everywhere you go in the public sector, tax office, everywhere, the condition is actually impossible. So people need to be aware of this. And in any case, you want to talk about let's say universal credit, for example. There is a customer helpline which you can phone in different places. I'm not going to really give these numbers out because you can actually look at them. You can find them from online, and then deal with this if you need it, because there's no point people are watching this video globally. So Rona talk about the broad aspect of health. So I've already talked about things like gas and electricity, and talked about suppliers with whom you can come to a solution. We talk about trying to negotiate with them, and also to remember that your service can be disconnected, so you have to be very careful with energy. And there are other forms of debt I will be talking about it going forward, but there are so many, and I'll be having to go through this from time to time. And we talk of income being affected by long-term symptoms, and I've already discussed this. I'm going through this material, but I already talked about them anyway. I'm just checking to see that I haven't missed anything. So some people actually pay their bills in different ways. So check what you're paying, how you're paying your bills. And some of them are actually using top-up system. Some of them are actually paying bills quarterly. It doesn't matter. But the key thing is that there is always income problem related to energy, and it's sufficient to say. So you can find that the behavior of the energy company towards the people of this country when they are struggling to pay bills. These energy companies are so ruthless, and the government should not allow energy to fall into the hands of private companies, because they are so ruthless that they are so. These are multi-billion businesses who should not behave the way they behave. They will disconnect the supply, and if customers don't pay back the amount of money they owe, they will remain without energy. This in a country like Britain is an impossibility. It is disgraceful. The British government should be ashamed of itself, because this energy company are allowed to take benefits from people, or even to ask people on low income, people on minimum wage, who should not be really be used by the energy company, who are actually colluding with the British government. British government which have no shame at all. British government should either exempt people on minimum wage. People on benefit shouldn't pay energy. If they are paying energy, then they should pay energy on a reduced amount. Like now, at the time of the cost of living crisis, paying energy for people on low income, people on benefit, should be suspended. Multimillionaires and multi-billionaire energy companies have made more money than they know what to use the money for. This is what they said recently. Because of the cost of living crisis, they made so much money, and they said it openly that they have so much money, they don't know what to use the money for. The government still in tax policy give billions of pounds to this energy company who made so much money, they don't know what to use it for. Instead of giving money to people on minimum wage, giving money to people on benefit, or even people who need it, or actually instructing the energy company not to charge for energy for maybe a period of time, or reduce the cost of energy. Instead, the government allow energy company to increase the cost of energy. Energy now is unaffordable almost to anyone, especially during winter. The government is giving symbolic help, which is no help at all. They are giving help to people on benefit, maybe £300, and that is not even enough to last 3 months. And the government is boasting of giving help. The government cannot give help to anyone because there is no money. The absurd of the country, the absurd of the energy company, the absurd of the water company. That's why there's problem. If you nationalize this institution and start supplying electricity, gas directly, and water directly to people who need help, if the government wants privatization, it should privatize part of the economy to be accessed by multimillionaires, people who are on minimum wage, which is actually too low. People who are actually on benefit should not pay for basic necessities, including food, energy, and water, or even housing. If they are to pay, the government should heavily subsidize these services. Either, if it's desperate to privatize, it should actually put conditions of fixing prices. But you cannot fix prices through public companies unless you actually pay them grant. So the government privatizing public service should pay grant to private companies, so that private companies don't increase prices even if there is crisis. That happen within the cost of living crisis. And that is something we should go and speak to your MP about. And leave a comment below. We can carry on discussing this if you value this kind of information here in Britain. But this, what is happening in Britain, should be happening in Europe, America, and in Africa, and in Asia. So, in this real world, it is really disgraceful that the British government allows multi-billion organizations to abuse people who are on low income by threatening to disconnect their services. It is an offense which is actually born of ignorance from the government of Britain and of the government of across the globe. No government in their right mind should abuse their countrymen to prevent them from accessing food and energy. And the only way a government allows private companies, which are actually multi-billionaires and multi-millionaires, to disconnect energy or even disconnect water or any service, or even make it almost impossible to access these basic necessities. Such a government has to be evil, intending to kill the majority of the population, and stopping to pretend of people who are actually at the bottom of the pile, because violence knows no boundary. If you abuse even only one member of our of the British society, you are bound to abuse even the super rich. As a government, you are bound to abuse even the multimillionaires and multi-billionaires. This is a security issue, and it's a problem created by the state. States which are actually violent, who are actually poorly educated, and they don't value humanity. If they did, they would actually not create such problem as I've been describing here. And I will be repeating these points again and again, and look at the different elements to provide evidence of how we have been talking about the cost of living crisis. The cost of living crisis, like I said, is a symptom, and we can talk about it, but we need to remember it is actually a sign of a bigger problem to do with peace or lack of peace. And the British people are responsible for their life. If you don't value your life, that is okay. If you value your life, that is even better. That means you're prepared to work as families, as members of the community, or with your MP if your MP is still alive. Because the problem with the public sector is that it's affecting even public services with the members of parliament, the local authorities, because there is no funding. Everywhere in society is shutting down. The area of economy is still functioning, including healthcare, is private companies. But also private companies are actually shutting down because they don't have money either. That's why small and medium businesses are shutting down. Even big businesses are going to shut down. Because you see, it doesn't matter how big you are, if the people in the country do not have money, because they are being paid low, their jobs, they're losing their jobs, because everybody thinks about the cost of living, or the cost of actually running businesses. These businesses are going to close down. It doesn't matter what the government says about growth. Growth, if it is actually rigged toward in favor of the few, with wealth being concentrated in the hands of the few. It doesn't matter how much you grow the economy, you grow economy in vain. It's not going to help the poor, it's not going to help anybody else except the few who are actually already multi-billionaires and multi-billionaires. The thing to actually benefit people other than multi-billionaires and billionaires, people who are super rich, is the public sector, which is actually straightforward, is actually simplistic, is a simple and direct method of helping people who are disadvantaged, who are the majority, 90% of the population. And this point will be repeated over and over. And people who understand it, leave a comment below, subscribe to this channel to support it, and watch it, share with family and friends, and talk to me and to discuss all these issues as we. So, as you can see, whatever the government tries to do, whatever trick it tries to play, the basis of the problem is actually income related. And the government is trying to solve problems. It's not even trying actually, it's just behaving in its own madness to give money to private companies to try and provide public service. This thing doesn't work. public service can only be provided by public sector. Now the government is giving money to the energy company, like I said. They are telling us grant can be paid, but these grants are worthless because if you cannot access grants, there's no point. This energy company are not giving grants. The organization, if you are actually a British person, go to British Gas. There's something called British Gas Energy Support Fund, which is actually apply for grants. You can apply for grants there if you want, or on the British Gas Energy Trust website. Go to that website. I have been there and several times actually trying. Yeah, they used to have a telephone number. I don't think they now have. They have it, then fine. Phone them, but if you phone them, you might have to wait very long online on the queue, and because they don't have resources anyway for public services. Even big organizations like British Gas, they are trying to cut costs. So their telephone services may or may not work. Everybody is now trying to go online. And going online, actually, you can send email to them, to the British Gas, who actually apply on their website. It says here, go to their website. It means you actually apply online. If you apply online, you can wait for maybe a few days or a few weeks. And most likely, they're going to come back to you with empty hand. They're not going to give you any grant. They're going to say something like, go to a debt advisor, or they can recommend a debt advisor for you to go to get debt advice, which I don't know the logic, because if you need help, if you're on low income, if you're on minimum wage, if you're on benefit, it should be obvious that you are struggling. And they shouldn't wait until you're in debt, because you see, until you're in debt, you're not going to get anything in the first place. In the second, even if you're in debt with them, energy companies now trying to force people to get a prepayment meter. Prepayment meter means you're not going to be in debt, because they will take your money anyway, even if you have money or not. And the only thing, if you are in a prepaid payment, you're going to be disconnected. And there's also something called smart meter for water and energy. What that means is that smart meter means they can disconnect you faster. It doesn't cost them now to disconnect customers. So whatever they're trying to do, they're trying to control your energy supply more by smart meter. Smart meter is smart in their favor. It's not smart in favor of the customers. And they will always argue that you pay for the energy you use, but that is not the issue. The issue is that the cost of energy is the issue. No, I mean, people can pay if they can afford with smart meter or meter which is not smart. So that is actually complete nonsense from the energy company. And this energy company has actually implemented customer policy, which is complete nonsensical. You have the British Gas, of course, British Gas Energy Support Fund. That is the name of the grant. So if you go in there, if you are actually struggling, go and get this grant. And take it from me, you are less likely to get it. And you have to be on benefit or low income, but not minimum wage. You have to be in debt. Why should they wait until you are in debt? Why should they wait until you are in benefit? They should actually pay anybody who is struggling, unless they say that somebody has a lot of money, which they normally don't have a lot of money. They don't have a lot of money, and normally people who are struggling, and a lot of people struggle actually because of the minimum wage problem, the living wage level, which is a problem. And should I say, this actually is not really something. Let me just go through, because you have British Gas. Contact British Gas if you're in Britain, if you are struggling with energy costs. Then leave a comment below if you heard this video. If you got it, let me know if you got the help and how easy or difficult. Because what is the point of giving help or telling people you give help if it is if you make it so complicated to get this help? and which is also not necessary, because it is only happening because the government has failed to manage energy costs for the normal people, especially people on low income. Then you have Scottish Power Hardship Fund. That's the name of the grant. Scottish Power. If you are a customer of Scottish Power, then contact Scottish Power. It's called Scottish Power Hardship Fund. Again, go to their website and ask for them if you are their customer. British Gas actually provide. They are supposed to give you grant even if you are not their customer. That is the rule on British Gas. But organizations like Scottish Power Hardship Fund from Scottish Power Energy Supplier, they only give to their customers. They don't give to anybody else. Except the only person giving to anybody actually is British Gas, which is in theory is quite good. But in practice, if they don't actually give it, which means the problem there. Why advertise something if you make it? If you are a thief, are you corrupt? That's the question. Because if you're not going to help, don't tell people you are helping them. And if you're going to help them, don't make it almost impossible, so stressful, and so costly. If somebody doesn't even know how to use, if somebody doesn't know how to use internet, they might not get this help. There is another company called OVO. These are all private companies. They supply energy in the UK. They are called OVO Customer Support Package. That is actually the grant available to OVO. If you are the customer of OVO, you can go and ask them. If you don't get it, leave a comment below and let me know what happened to you. Or if you have a family or friend, share this information with them and share this video with them. There is E.ON, somebody called E.ON. If you live in the UK, you will be so familiar with this organization. E.ON E.ON Next Energy Fund. That is the name of the grant. A lot of people do not even know there is this grant, because you have to do something complicated research to find out there is this grant. Now, why do you even say there is help if people don't even know those help exist and they don't even know how to apply? And if they know how to apply, the energy company makes it almost impossible, because the process of getting it is so complicated. You want to help people who are actually poor, people who are so vulnerable. Some of them are sick, some of them are mental illness, some of them have all sorts of problems. And if private companies cannot help, the government should have actually helped them through some public or charity and made it actually the problem with help, grant or benefit is that the complexity of access, especially sickness benefit. I've seen this, I will be saying it that again, so people understand the situation in Britain in terms of specificity. So there's another one called EDF Energy. I mean, if you are in Britain, you know who EDF are. They are very common, but they also have grants. I'm actually going through organization with grants. We should actually help anybody who need help. They should have a system which is simplified, who can actually identify people who need help, people who are low income, even if they work, people who are, but the real criteria is so poorly thought through, is so poorly implemented, is so wrong. Because you have to be on benefit, you have to be, even if you have to be in debt with the energy company. And the energy company are now doing things to avoid people falling into debt, because once you're not in debt, they're not going to give you the money because it's discretionary. Discretionary means they are not obligated. You know, you can't actually appeal, you can't take them to court because they didn't pay. So they do as they please. In practice, they don't actually give the money out. I don't know what they use the money for. Maybe they send it back to the government, or they just, I don't know whether who will give them the money. This information is lacking, but it has to be from the government, because these private companies are so greedy that they're not going to help anybody. But even if they are helping somebody, they cannot announce that they're giving help when they actually don't give. And this is the problem with hospitals. Hospitals are also privatized, so they ask you to phone them, but they don't provide help anymore. So in theory, the British people are going to be left without, don't fall sick, so you're going to be left without health care. What will happen is only if you're about to die, then you might get help from the health sector, from benefit. For example, sickness benefit, if you have 6 months to live, then they will give it easily. Now, what kind of perversion is that for a government to only give you money if you are going to die within 6 months? You have to be a wizard. The government, the UK government are behaving like wizards and witches, and it's a really, really funny way to behave. If somebody is going to die in 6 months, then you give them sickness benefit. If you are not dying, even if you are terminally ill, if you're not going to die within 6 months, you're not going to get sickness benefit because of one thing at least: the assessment, the health assessment, which is actually set by the government, which is done by people who have no clue about medicine. They are not clinicians. The doctor will tell a claimant or a potential claimant that they are sick, write a letter to the DWP saying this individual is sick. The DWP still, because of the government policy, do not give sickness benefit to sick people. That's why I say the sickness benefit should be shut. The money should be given to people who are healthy to increase the level of benefit, whether they're sick or healthy. The level of benefit should be able to remove people out of poverty, because the fragmenting benefit is actually a seemingly clever way of the government to avoid paying benefit, to make it complex. And this scenario actually occur even for the way they fund local authorities now. Local authorities now are so distorted that the service is so distorted. These actually local councils are being run by private companies, or there is a group of people known as not-for-profit, they are charities. These people are actually there to make money of the government in their own interest. Let's look at this list that we are looking at. There is somebody called Octopus. The Octopus, if you are in the UK, you should know, is the energy supplier. So the grant, the scheme is called Octopus Octo Assist Fund. All these are actually online. Try and get it if you are actually their customer. Apply for a grant on the Octopus website. Like I said, it's Shell Energy Support Fund. So if you know Shell Energy, they supply energy also, it's gas and electricity. So if they are your supplier, go to them if you are in trouble. Even if you think you're not going to get it, go and try. And you might get it, you might not get it. It's like playing a lottery. So what? You have nothing to lose. You have the time. Go and try and get help. You might get it. Normally if you get the help, they clear out. Doesn't matter how much money you have hold. But like I said before, energy companies are now preventing people even to incur debt because of things like smart meter, prepayment meter. They are now forcing customers onto prepayment meter or smart meter. That means if you don't get into debt, you're going to suffer the cost of living crisis without getting any grant at all from the energy company. So it is almost like fraud to say you are giving help when you don't actually give it practice. You have Shell Energy. So all these actually, these suppliers are actually listed. Now, if they are not, then you can contact some of these people. If they are not listed online, then actually contact your supplier and ask them specifically that you want grant to help you with your energy company. Like I said, you're most likely not to get it if you're not in debt or you are not on benefit. If you don't get that advice, which is so difficult to get now, there is a website called Origa Services. Go online and get look for this organization. When I start editing my video, I will be writing this on my video, but now I'm struggling to get the proper app for editing my video. A simple thing like writing things on my screen is I'm still struggling with it. So when we talk of Origa Services, they have actually got details on grants and similar schemes for from energy and water companies in the UK. So it applies for energy and water utilities, in other words. So we can do things like that. And like I've already said, to apply for this grant is not easy because the application are so complicated. you need to be an expert, a professional, and these professionals are so difficult to get because they are not being funded properly by the government. So you have to provide detailed information about your financial situation, something which is really complex and unnecessary, and is also complex for professionals like legal advisors or actually advisors on debt and stuff like that. And it could take a while to complete. It takes really long time, and but you try your best. Sometimes you can get help from your family or friends, but these are actually situations you need to face. Because if the government is no longer helping you much, you can maybe rely on your family or friends in whatever way you can. This is all I can say. And it is a reality. I'm just trying to go through this information which I get from online, and you can also get it online. They're on the government website, Citizen Advice Public website, and other debt organizations if you look for them online. So, like I said, some of the complexity will involve you applying for this help from organizations like EON or EDF. In particular, you will need to show you have completed a budget sheet with a Financial Conduct Authority approved advisor. These advisors need to be approved by a Financial Conduct Authority, which are actually, these debt advisors are very not easy to find because they are also depending on government grant. Most of them are private companies, or maybe they are working as charities. And the story is the same because there is no funding, and it is theoretical that you are going to get debt advice anyway. If you go to debt advice, it's the chances that they're going to advise you partially and up to refer you or signpost you to another organization. So there's a vicious cycle, there's a desperation, there is hopelessness within the local service sector. The parent problem is to do with the government, which is actually switching off the public sector and the private and public services. And that is a problem to do with ideology, politics, and bad politics like that. Neglecting, actually, is a very violent way politicians behave, not just in the UK, but also across the globe. And some of the requirements to get advice with the debt advisor is to try and complete a budget sheet. These are actually complicated documents which are being demanded from people who may not even know how to write their names properly, people who may be suffering from dementia, people who are actually sick. They are left in the cold, and the government demand all these people. You can actually you have to go to Money Helper and website to get budget planner. So all this complication is unnecessary, because if the government are given this money to the DWP will just assess people who are already been assessed, and this money should have been mandatory alongside benefit before there is a crisis of the cost of energy. And on the side of the cost of food, we haven't even started yet, because food is very, and energy are actually fundamental. You cannot access food and energy, you're going to die. So it's the government trying to kill British people. If they can kill poor people because they are poor, and then a tendency like that will also lead to the death of the rich, who are actually about 10 to 15%. See, so this is the situation I've been talking about. Now we're going to continue talking about this. So normally, when you're trying to get help, even with advisor, with debt advisors, or with any of the situation, you can contact organizations. If you're in the UK, you can contact your local citizen advice, consumer helpline for advice. It is actually important to try and get this help. I believe it is not straightforward, because if you phone citizen advice or any of the debt companies, it's not obvious that they're going to help you quickly. But it's worth waiting, because you have a limited option. Ultimately, if you're lucky enough for them to help, then they will help. They also expect to be a lot of signposting. Signposting or referral means they send you to other organizations, and it could be a vicious cycle where these organizations are really resourceful if the government can help them. The problem, the government is not giving them enough funding at all. And if they give funding, it's not enough. And these organizations are underperforming by nearly 75%. The capacity is there, but there is no funding. The student advice and all the other debt advisors cannot employ recruit people to do the work, because these are actually labor intensive. Although it is service, it's labor intensive. There is an error of computer, but it's not really a substitute for human advisor. And these organizations are now actually referring their customer to public website, which is okay. There's an argument of empowerment, which is okay. But you see, even if there is empowerment, some people are so disadvantaged that empowerment sounds like an insult. Because you see, you don't decide to empower people if they cannot be empowered quickly. They are in a crisis. Empowerment is an afterthought. The primacy of local advice to people who are already vulnerable. The primacy is actually to support them directly. Referral is almost becoming displaced, because respective agencies should be able to provide all the services. If there is funding, to provide training, to provide recruitment. And these are some of the things you need to consider. Leave a comment below if you want to discuss this further. Subscribe to this channel to support the channel. And I'll speak to you soon in the next one. Thank you. Bye-bye.